Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Busy day, 3 hearings in one day. I know we share the committee work on financial services as well as this committee, so I appreciate you holding today's hearing. We've been living under one-party Democratic control for a little over a year, and the results are pretty darn concerning. Inflation is at 8.6%. American families are paying $433 a month more than they were before the start of the administration. That's $5,200 a year. Folks are getting clobbered with rising costs, and our poorest communities are being hit the hardest. Prior to the pandemic, the Trump tax cuts created real economic growth. Prior to the pandemic, low-income families saw their net worth increase 37%. Real wages increased 2.9%. Median household income, in particular, improved the most for some of the least amongst us. Real wages were increasing prior to the pandemic. They're falling now. But prior to the pandemic, above the average, above the median, were Hispanics, blacks, Asians, women, veterans. Now we see the opposite. We see real wages falling for all Americans, even at a higher rate for the least amongst us. Never has a juxtaposition of policy been so stark and been so clear. Having seen the results, I believe the Trump tax cuts need to be made permanent. And soon we'll be having a conversation here on Capitol Hill about extending these tax reforms. And I hope my Democratic colleagues will work with us to keep these reforms in place, because we should be working to ensure that the tax code remains simple, fair, and rewards hardworking Americans. A lot's changed under the new administration, driven in part by the $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. The $1.9 trillion stimulus bill changed tax policy in particular by no longer expecting work and expanding handouts. And the results kneecapped the economic recovery from COVID. A fully refundable child tax credit removed the expectation for work. In America, there's a proven path to success that people can follow to reach the middle class. If you finish high school, if you work full-time, and if you're married before you have your first child, there's a 97% chance you'll not live in poverty. It's called the success sequence. Our tax code should work to encourage it, and definitely not discourage it. Since the 1990s, Congress has increased spending by 80% to address poverty. But the massive new spending has not massively decreased poverty. The U.S. government authorizes almost $300 billion a year to help low-income families. This funding includes the Earned Income Tax Credit and refundable portions of the child tax credit. The Democrats' Build Back Better tax proposals are poorly targeted and do not enable upward mobility. The fully refundable child tax credit turned a worker's credit into a child allowance, undermining the connection to work. The unintended consequences of these policies are being seen today. Families were flooded with stimulus payments, but were disconnected from proposals that encouraged work. Massive wealth transfers can move people above the poverty line. That's not debated. But it does not move low-income families sustainably into the middle class. These policies have truly failed to move low-income families up and into the middle class in a sustainable way. Our tax code should be built to reward work. We should mirror our tax policies to encourage the success sequence in a simple way. Again, success sequence, finishing high school, getting a full-time job, and getting married before your first child's born. When this path is followed, as I said, 97% of families will not find themselves in poverty. It needs to help bring these to the bottom, to middle class, not keep them near poverty. That should be one of our key goals. And so where do you go from here? I think the key here is to make the tax cuts permanent that gave us the economic growth prior to the pandemic. And I think we have a real opportunity, Mr. Chairman, in particular in a nonpartisan way, to really explore how the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit can be connected. And I believe there needs to be a connection in particular to work. Americans should have fair, simple, low taxes. They should reward work, promote opportunity. I know we're going to have a robust conversation on the topic today. I appreciate you holding today's hearing. Mr. Chairman, I will yield back.